Thanks for joining us. It's late on a Wednesday, and I bet everybody's like me, and a little bit tired from yesterday. But this is our panel on hotel development strategies from concept to completion. We're in a challenging market, I think, from my perspective. I'm not sure if the rest of you agree. Lots of opportunities out there, but definitely challenging from the perspective of cost escalation, tariffs, labor shortages, market impacts, ever-changing demands from the travelers and brands. But there are ways that we can still successfully develop and move forward. I think we'll hear some consistent themes from the panel today, and we'll probably hear some individual perspectives as well. I think as we were conversing in the past weeks, we landed on a common success theme, which is get your team compiled early, really pull them together and get that input early on. That's your best path for guaranteed success on the end. I will start with some introductions of the panel here, and I'm also going to ask you for a little tidbit on yourself as well. I'll start at the end with John Brewer. John is Vice President and National Hospitality Leader at Whiting Turner's Las Vegas office. You've 17-year career and focused on hospitality and entertainment across numerous iconic properties on and off the Strip. See, your resume includes 6,000 hotel keys, 3.5 million square feet of hospitality space, large range of projects including room and suite remodels, casinos, restaurants, bars, entertainment venues, and retail space in fully occupied facilities, and I can commiserate. That is challenging and stressful, so kudos to you. John, what's an unexpected or surprising tidbit you could tell us about your career?
I'll give two quick ones. So first one is I grew up in Missouri, so the thought of doing 3.5 million square foot or 6,000 hotel rooms before like age 40 was like not something in my wildest dream that I could have imagined. So it's pretty humbling but exciting that I was able to do that. The last one, if you ever see me and can't remember my name, I brew beer as well, so kind of goes with the last name Brewer, so help you remember me, so thank you.
Thanks, John. Sarah Churchill, Director of Business Development at Benjamin West. Sarah has extensive knowledge of the hospitality industry with over 8 years of FF&E purchasing experience. Sarah's completed numerous 4- and 5-star luxury hotels and resort properties, working closely with clients, designers, and vendors. She's managed over $100 million worth of FF&E for her hospitality clients, and you currently serve on the board of NEWH Rocky Mountain Chapter.
Great, thank you. And I love your question about the interesting fact about yourself, because this is honestly something that I don't share with many people, but I was born profoundly deaf, and I wear 2 cochlear implants to hear. So I started off really wanting to get into hospitality when I was younger because I loved traveling and staying at hotels. It made you feel like you were in a special place. It made you feel good and comfortable. So I really wanted to get into hospitality to give back, and I started off on the design side, then did the actual purchasing for 8 years, and then now I'm fully on the business development side for Benjamin West. So like you said, it's very humbling to be here.
Thank you. And Chris Desai, Senior Vice President of Baywood Hotels. Chris is a seasoned hospitality veteran in the Southeast market with a heavy focus on South Florida. With over 22 years of experience, Chris has spearheaded more than 40 hotel projects, including 26 new builds, 15 acquisitions. Chris has also managed numerous projects in Baywood's development pipeline in Florida. Active member of several owner advisory boards, including but not limited to Marriott International and Intercontinental Hotel Group here in Atlanta.
Thank you, everyone. They say I'm a good host. I'm in South Florida for 22 years. We love hosting people. So anyone planning to come down to South Florida, give me a shout out, and we'll host you at one of our hotels in Miami.
You literally just invited everybody for a free hotel stay?
He didn't say free, he said host.
Oh, just host.
Friends and family.
And we have Katie Popp, Vice President of Design and Construction with Hyatt Hotels Corporation. Katie has dedicated over a decade to Hyatt Hotels, bringing her expertise in interior design and leadership to the forefront of the company's growth in the select service sector. She specializes in Hyatt's limited service brands, including the recent successful launch of the Hyatt Studios. Katie's a certified interior designer with a degree from the Illinois Institute of Art.
Thank you. Good afternoon. A little fun fact about me. I'm tenured in limited service design, so that's what I've been doing pretty much my whole hospitality career. My first role was with American Hotel Register, and there's a few people in this room that I've seen walk in that I worked with there quite some time ago, so good to see you guys today.
Thanks, and briefly, I'm Heather Tuskowski. I'm Operations Director at Winter Construction. We're based here in Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, our headquarters is just a little north in Chamblee. I built my first hotel in 2004 up in Virginia. It was a Hilton Garden Inn, so very familiar with the Select Service brand. I have overseen the construction of dozens of hotels since then. And I would say over the past 24 years that I've been in this industry, whether it's a high point or a low point, they all get built, they all get done. There's some pauses, there's some delays. I think we're in a very, as I mentioned, we're in a very challenging market right now, but the deals do get done. There are some more difficult than others, but with the right team and the right communication, they all do get built. So we'll kick it off. I will be going to the audience for individual questions at a couple times during this next 40 minutes or so. So if you have something urgently, I'll be looking out there, raise your hand, and I can pause as well. The first question is going to be mainly directed towards Chris and Katie. The temperature of the conference is lukewarm, I'd say, as far as interest rates and construction costs and pending tariffs heading our way, likely. And developers really need to be more strategic than ever. So whether it's structuring deals creatively or leveraging brand partnerships or efficiencies in design and being creative that way, what are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing in getting new deals done, and what solutions are really helping them pencil and projects move forward? Starting with you, Chris.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's a challenging market for sure. We already had high interest rate, construction cost was high, and now with tariff and potential, sort of slow down, if you will, because just overall sentiments are a little bit mixed, to say the least. So it's challenging, but if you're in the right market, if you believe in certain market, and if you have the right brand, this is a long-term thing. I think 6 months, 8 months, a year is not and should not change your overall goal, and also 4 to 5% swing in overall budget should not change your business plan. If it does change, if it makes or breaks, then there's a problem in the business plan to begin with. So I think in long run it works. It works itself out. But the key is you need to make sure you're in the right market. It's deep enough that can take changes that potentially can happen. We have seen changes after COVID, work from home, AI is the new thing, right? So if you have a balance that can take these changes, that's what we focus on, that you're not dependent on just one demand generator. There's multiple things that, there's some reason for people to visit your submarket. So if it's deep enough that, it can deal with the changes that we see and that's gonna come in, I think it works itself out. And having the brand helps a lot. It helps with your lender, it helps with your investor, it helps overall. So I think a right market and brand, those two things are the key.
Sounds like he's kicking it over to you, Katie, from a brand perspective.
Yeah, so brand and optimized prototypes is where I would go with this. We see construction costs going up, operational challenges, and developers are really leaning into the optimization around prototyping. So Hyatt Studios and our newest brand, Hyatt Select, they fit in our essentials portfolio at Hyatt, and we really work to optimize them so that they're scalable, they're cost efficient, and they're easy to operate. So then we can really be competitive in the market for our owners.
So looking at you, Sarah, for FF&E, and naturally lends itself to the question on tariffs. And do you see these tariffs affecting the new deals? I know that you've got some thoughts and strategies to overcome that, or just what your crystal ball might say.
Yeah, no, it's been the one question that we've been asked this whole conference is about tariffs, and I actually wrote an article for a company newsletter that released last month, Don't Be Terrified, and I really think that you shouldn't be terrified. There's a lot of solutions and tips, I said terrific tips, for mitigating any risk of tariffs right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. As we know, it went from, tariffs on Mexico and Canada to tariffs on China to no tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and now we do have tariffs on Mexico and Canada, so it's been flip-flopping almost daily and weekly. But we have to remember that tariffs are paid at the time that the FF&E is imported into the country. So if we placed a PO today and there's a 10% tariff today, and 5 months from now there's no tariff, then you don't pay a tariff. So we recommend overall to the project to add about 10% of the FF&E product-only cost to your budget as a contingency, but we won't know until it actually clears customs. And we have to remember that tariffs are based on the first cost of the product, not the final purchase order price.
So John, how are you dealing with tariffs on new contracts that you might be executing?
Yeah, so I think most of us got a little dose of this the last time this happened, so kind of worked through the bugs and contractual language and clear communication with our owners on exactly, how to navigate it, other options for material supply, and some of the rumor models where you get, and I know most of them that we'd be talking about here are probably a couple hundred keys or 150 to 200, but still, when you have those multipliers, they add up very quickly. And so there was a lot of pivoting to other streams, other options, and really it's just sitting down with ownership group and, if you can be engaged early enough, you can have those conversations and it doesn't have to be, as stressful. It can be, hey, here's all your options. Like you said, maybe add some contingencies. Maybe if you know of something that is coming, which right now it doesn't seem like there's that much of a heads up, but where you can say, hey, do you want to go ahead and ship this now and store it? Like we can put all those options on the table just to minimize that risk and help take some of the stress off of what's already a stressful, remodels can be very stressful,
So staying with you, John, once a project is moving forward, what are some of the common pitfalls in construction that developers should avoid to make sure they do stay on schedule and on budget?
Yeah, so I'd say for us, and with a lot of my experience on the renovation side, seeing over 100 different room types of horror stories and crazy things that can happen, and all that, you got to have a team that is kind of looking ahead and knows some of those things to look for and can ask the questions ahead of time, and that because our design partners, they want a couple weeks to respond to things. In the world of renos, that's not a reality. So the more things that you can kind of produce multiple options for ahead of time, pre-plan for, the more that you can look at those things, maybe do a little bit of additional investigation so that the train doesn't stop when it leaves the station. Like you gotta, the efficiency on a room remodel is getting going and keeping everybody flowing through that project as smoothly as possible. Makes it a lot easier on operations. So that would be the advice that I would have, is just make sure that between getting somebody on early, but having multiple solutions to the problem ahead of time so that you're not waiting or stopping.
Thanks. I think I want to shift to industry trends or market trends. I mean, over the years, say 5-10 years, we've seen a lot of different trends come. It could be modular in construction. That was a thing for a while. Could have been experiential hospitality. The extended stay we've heard a lot about. Currently, it's AI and how technology is impacting us. So what are the biggest trends that you think are shaping hotel development today, and how should developers and investors adapt to stay competitive? I think this is really open to anybody.
I can touch on that. I mean, I could talk on all of those topics because I think they're all shaping things in certain ways. I can go down the modular path a bit. I would say there's a lot of talk about modular. There still is. There's a lot of conversations around it. But we haven't really seen it scale in hospitality yet. So, I mean, I'd be hopeful that we can get there. I know Hyatt is working on a number of things, a number of opportunities. Also looking at how we design our new build prototypes to be modular friendly, to try and help push that path and that initiative in the right way.
Yeah, I'll touch on tech a little bit. I think what we are doing is any new project, we are budgeting a little bit more on tech than we used to do. And it has to do with what's happening in general. Everyone wants fast internet. Everyone's streaming from their phone or tablet to the TV. Some brands they require, and I think rightly so, fiber only. You can't have anything but fiber. Katie knows about it.
Studios plug.
There you go. So, and I think those are the right things to do. You have to stay ahead of the game because we don't know what's happening, what's coming, and some of these things that you do, it's very hard to redo 2 years, 5 years down the road. So just do a little bit more than needed today, because I think it's coming with the changes, the faster chips that comes every other week. Things are going to change. So we are doing a little bit above and beyond in terms of infrastructure for IT. I think in the long run, it's going to play a big role.
So one trend that went away in the last 10 years that I hope comes back, even though I am a millennial, is the guest room desk. So a lot of brand standards have the side table with the lounge chair, and I don't like to lay in bed and do emails, so having a room with a desk, a good desk chair, good height, I think is coming back. And a pro tip for all of you, even though the conference is switching to a different hotel next year, so I'm telling you just in time, is if you request an ADA room in this hotel, which I need one because of the strobe lights, it comes with a desk. So everyone here has been complaining that there's no desk when I have one.
I'm going to cut you off for a second, John, because it does roll into another topic that we're going to discuss. So guest expectations are evolving. They're evolving quickly. It's shifting demographics, new technology, as you both mentioned, and just changing travel behaviors. So Katie, this question's for you. With that in mind, how is your brand adapting its design, your amenity, your service offerings in order to keep up with these changing guest expectations?
Yeah, so when we launched the Studios brand, and now Select will follow that similar path, we created a group of people that were experts in their function. So we're cross-collaborating against design, commercial sales, operations, and as well as brand and IT for this brand specifically. What we've brought into this is doing a market analysis of each project up front, so that we can look at what needs to go in that hotel for that specific market. So we're making sure in the design phase early on, we're designing and building the right product for the right market. So some of the recommendations we might make are plug-in versus built-in cooktop. We've already got some brand standards in place, such as fiber, EV charging, 24/7 market. We'll look at queen versus king mix in the rooms. We'll also look at hardwired internet and safes. So if we know that there's a high government demand and there's going to be RFPs that we wouldn't even qualify for, we're talking about that at the design kickoff call with our studio's owners to make sure that we're building those rooms for the guests' needs.
And I think it's very important because we do new construction, we also acquire. And we have seen so many times where the design, when it was built, when we acquire, there was some fundamental challenge. And I'll just give you a couple examples. In Florida, when you do a room mix, having enough double-double is super important, especially if you have a leisure market. Brand has a prototype, and the prototype always have more kings. Sometimes it's 60%, 65% king, and 35% double, which doesn't work in certain market. But the brand proactively sometimes does not do a great job telling the first time a developer to change up a little bit because of market demand. And we see this all the time. So it's good to see the brand proactively looking at certain things, because eventually we are converting some of those rooms from king to double as we speak, because it doesn't work, or salespeople can't sell it. So it's good to have those from the get-go, because some changes you can do it, but some changes you just can't do it if it's not built right.
So that really is balancing the brand standards with guest expectations, or what they want in that hotel. Really keeping that long-term value in the asset. So let's talk about that as it relates to PIPs, and really share your owner approach to CAPEX and PIPs, and how to maximize your ROI.
Yeah, so most of you know, when you acquire a hotel or build a new hotel, every year you put 4% plus minus in CAPEX reserve. So year 7, year 8 comes along, you have enough funds built up in that bucket to do the PIP. I think that 4% is not enough with the changes, the cost of renovation. So we do a little bit more than what sometimes lender require or brand recommended, more reserve than what's needed, because come 7-year, 8-year reno, you have enough built up. So that's something we try and do. On the PIP side, I think having the right team to get the PIP done in a timely fashion, it's extremely important. Sometimes getting it done in 4 months versus 6 months can make a big difference, because it may eat up in your busy season, right? So having the right players to support construction management or design, or at the contractor level, right partners to do the work, it's extremely important. Sometimes we try and cut some cost, but in long run, it costs you more, either time frame that takes to finish it, or maybe you'll be open enough to do another project if you have the right team. So having right team is the key.
John's over there nodding. You want to elaborate on that at all, John, as far as just the right team and getting involved early, and the teams, not just the consultants, but the contractor too?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that can happen early on if you're at the table and having discussions, understanding how the hotel's operating, and understanding how to attack a room or remodel type of project if you can keep the facility open. Oftentimes you can have a conversation. Again, the efficiency and driving down the cost on a remodel is by creating productivity. You don't want to have one person come in and then have to come in 3 weeks later to do a project. A lot of times I get to look at remodels and it's, okay, do this floor, and then start the next floor like 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later. That electrician that was working in that room doing XYZ week 1, if he gets pulled to he or she gets pulled to a completely different project, that learning curve starts over again and again and again. So the more that you can have, a crew of 4 or 5, and then peel that back to a crew of 4 as they get more efficient, and a crew of 3 maybe as they get more efficient. You can cut, multiples of 10% out of some of the labor cost over the course of a project by being very strategic with your approach, and sitting down with the owner and saying, hey, do you have a big event coming up, like in Vegas, Super Bowl Sunday or March Madness? I don't know how many times I had the owner say, hey, do you think you can get me these rooms 2 days earlier? I could make X. Like, they made on one of the room remodel projects an extra $1 million just because we were able to strategically give them weekends 2 days earlier. So having those conversations, and sometimes understanding those pressure points of, when you can do valve shutdowns for riser, replacement type of items, things like that. And it's all about the communication. You can't understand, where your pressure points are, your room night outages, when you're, hitting your highest room rates without sitting down, having a conversation, and running a bunch of different options. There's a way to still be very efficient and gradually make those adjustments to those manpower, without having a complete overhaul every time you go on a floor or into a different room type.
I'm glad you said the word communication. It's a word that hasn't come up yet, but we all know how important it is. I mean, the whole panel's about the strategies to success, and it really is the team, which you've all touched on, and it's the communication, just the clear communication amongst the team. Talk about pain points and come up with a strategy that works for everybody. John, rising material cost, it's a thing, never really goes down. What strategies can developers use to keep construction costs under control while maintaining quality?
Yeah, so a lot of the focus, when we talk about prefabrication, everybody automatically assumes volumetric, and I think we'll get there eventually, right? Like, once the labor gets past a certain threshold and you get a developer that has the capital to be able to deploy it in a way that makes the volumetric actually work, I think we'll see more of that. In the short term, though, what we see a ton of, and I think it's really good, is prefabrication of electrical whips, or prefabrication of mixing valve assemblies, or prefabrication of different things. You get more quality control because they can do it at their shop. They're not under the pressure of doing it while they're in the field. But you get that just, and a lot of the times even, you can use like Wago connectors and different things to be able to swap out with minimal downtime, especially if it's an operational facility, so that, somebody's not without, if it's on a riser, their electrical being impacted for a significant amount of time. You can kind of work through those things. So, I think using prefabrication to whatever level that you can is, great. Like, when we do our projects, we'll prefabricate all of our trade cuts and palletize it and potentially deliver that to the room with light fixtures and everything. So here's your kit for the room. And the more that you can do that, the quicker you can go and reduce that labor cost.
We have about 15 minutes left, so I want to pause and make sure that we're going down a path that you all want us to. So I'll pause and scan the audience for any questions that you've got for the panel. It's got to be one.
Oh, come on, we haven't answered everything.
Not that good.
I have a question for John. You talk a lot about renovation versus new construction. What would you say the importance is of like a specialized team that focuses on, renovations and PIPs versus like a new build?
Yeah, so, I think on the reno side of it, and, some people think about the complications of a new build, and I think at most of us general contractors, we have cross experience on both of those, right? So building a structure, as long as you have the process in place, it's not that difficult. When you talk about doing a renovation, you really have to understand the horror stories that you don't know until you've lived them, and kind of, I often will go into a hotel, well, I think all of us probably do, right? You go into a hotel room and you're like looking at every little detail. First thing I look at every hotel I go into is where the vanity, is it back fed or side fed, right? so that if I ever go into that again, is it possible to do an FF&E piece, or are you looking at doing another built-in, which then has another level of complexity and not being like having to cut those tops in the room because there's going to be, you know, different sizes of tops just based on tolerances, right? So those types of things you don't get unless you have the team that has that specialty, right? That has lived it, that knows what they're dealing with.
And I totally agree, coming from the GC side.
Yeah.
We're all builders, right, which means problem solvers, but you definitely have the guys that have the lessons learned from the blood, sweat, and tears of it, and they can get ahead of it, and that's the strategy of a successful renovation, is trying to be as forward-thinking as you can with that. Sarah, FF&E. How should developers balance cost, quality, and durability when selecting FF&E to ensure long-term value?
Yeah, so this goes to what everyone has been saying. You assemble the right team, make sure that you hire your interior design firm and your purchasing firm at the same time, ideally, and make sure that the purchasing firm and design firm are working off of the same budget, and start making some decisions on who to go to vendor-wise. Are we going to a vendor that's manufacturing in Vietnam or China or domestically if, you know, there's a shorter lead time for the project? So we want to get involved in these very early on conversations, and like what you were saying with the vanity, base, and top, we need to look at the diff doc and make sure that we know who's buying what and who's in what scope, just to avoid any duplicates, or making sure that, you know, the design firm is really, really strong at the documentation part of it. You can look at pretty design pictures all day, but until we actually get into a conversation with the design firm and vendors and make sure that they are doing all the documentation, really tight specs, left and right, ADA, the counts, we can really look at the quality options that are out there and looking at the cost over the lifetime and how long maybe the owner is holding on to an asset. So the earlier we get involved, we can start having these conversations and making decisions in the best interest of the owner.
So you don't wait for a model room to be constructed and then pick your FF&E at that point?
Yeah, so we always recommend a model room. It's probably one of the most important things you can do on a project. A lot of brand standard prototype projects don't necessarily do a model room, but it is important to look at the different options, ideally 2 vendors per commodity for the model room and 2 countries of origin, because as we talk about with tariffs, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what country could deal with any rolling shutdown or higher tariffs over another country at any given time. So a model room is really effective in having the options open when it comes time for production orders. And the earlier we get started, really the overall better will be. And no one's really talking about logistics anymore during COVID. We all know that the cost of a container pre-COVID was about $1,500 to $2,000 a container. It was in the news, it spiked to $30,000+ a container. It came way back down, but today we're looking at $6,000 to $8,000 a container, so it's gone up again. So not a lot of people are talking about that over tariffs, and that may actually have a greater impact to a project than tariffs. So we need to be involved and start making decisions based on the current climate.
Supply chain was the word, right, back in the day with COVID?
Supply chain.
Supply chain.
It's still a word.
Yeah, but
Very
back
much
then
so.
everything was supply chain.
That's right.
One time we were at a restaurant, food came late, supply chain.
It's kind of like the gas premiums from the late 2000s. They never really went away.
Right.
Yeah. Chris, this is a broad question, but what do you think, if you could really put something at the top, is the most effective strategy to mitigate financial and operational risks during hotel development?
Yeah, so if you're doing a new construction, I think with a lot of moving parts, you want a little bit more contingency than historically you underwrite for any project. Let's say it used to be, I don't know, 7-8%, maybe now you do 10-12%. And also work with, this is true in our case, we work with the lenders that understand construction, they understand some of the challenges. And having that little bit of history with the lender that you have, worked with in the past helps. But to deal with some of the unknowns, I would say build in more contingency. At the end of the project, let's say if you have leftover, it's a good problem to have versus not enough contingency. You can reduce your loan, or you can deal with it if you have some leftover contingency at the end of the project. But too many things up in the air. Tariff, no tariff, labor situation with all the immigration thing. A lot of things are unknown. So it's a challenging time, and the only thing you can do as a hotelier is build in more contingency and be true, be transparent with your investor, transparent with your lender about what you're doing, why you're doing it, what's the thought process, what happens if it unfolds in one way, if it unfolds in a different way, what are the plans, how are you going to deal with it. That's the only thing you can do. But I think the challenges we have, it'll be short to medium term. I think long term, if you have the right product, right market, it'll be fine. So that's all you can do at this point to be ready for something that's unknown for a lot of us. No one has a right answer.
Katie, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, he's right. If you can get the product to pencil, right? You want to be strategic and make sure you're partnering with the right brand and building the right product, because ultimately it needs to perform, whatever the market conditions are now versus in the future. So I think aligning with, the upfront cost contingency, getting it to be financially viable, but you also just want to make sure you're building the right thing, because you want to be able to, the product has to perform.
And I'll add on to that, because Chris, you were mentioning the 4% CAPEX reserve. So as we all know, during COVID, the lender allowed the owner to use that 4% towards survival. And I'm actually in ISHC, the Hospitality Society, and we publish a CAPEX study every 5 years. So the last one released in 2023, and we actually found out that if you put all different hotel types into a blender, that number is actually 8%, because you were saying 4% is not enough. That number is closer to 8%. So now a lot of owners don't have that 4% that they used during COVID, or that other half of the 8%. So it's really, really critical to, even though they are cash starved, a lot of PIPs are deferred and need to be done, to not hire the firm that has the lowest fee on the spreadsheet, because that will cost you way more in the long run than hiring the right team, the right expertise to get you the lowest cost, best value, best lead times.
Yeah, you touched upon good, excellent point that during COVID, the lenders allowed you to use your CAPEX reserve so you can survive. So that bucket was empty. The brand also gave a couple years extension on PIP. But at some point, it's due. It's due because brand wants you to do it. You also need it because your customer wants fresher product. It's needed. So you need to build up that bucket quickly, and 4% is not enough. You're right.
I want to build on that really quick. Something Hyatt's done that's been really strategic along these lines, having our owner in mind, is for the Essentials portfolio, which is our limited service brands. We've developed a new renovation policy, or newish renovation policy. I want to be careful how I say this. It is a consistent policy in the approach. It's a written policy that's consistent. We're holding all of our owners accountable in the same way, but it's giving an owner flexibility around their renovation cycles. So if the asset is upkept well and there's consistency to that over the life of the asset, we're giving leniency around when the renovations are due. And that's a data-driven approach. It's not opinionated. It's all written out in the policy, where we're looking at your metrics and scores at the property level, where you can push out your renovation cycles and potentially even skip one if the asset's performing.
So you're encouraging just ongoing upkeep and...
Yeah, keeping it yeah.
Hold on a second. Yeah, thanks.
design side, and we do PIPs all the time. So if there's, costs that could be reserved for other uses, to save costs on PIPs, are you seeing any like new build development or projects now that are looking for more sustainable materials that withstand like the test of time, that are even more expensive, but more sort of using that aspect of circularity in your design process from the beginning, so that you don't have to redo that stone flooring or that hardwood flooring in 10 years?
I mean, I think partners like, Baywood Group Hotels and stuff, like they're taking that approach of a long-term hold asset. And if you're spending a little bit more upfront on your FF&E and products, you can look at the long-term investment of that. That's a real thing. We don't have the luxury of that in all opportunities, or maybe with everyone's mindset, depending on what they're building. So we're putting this renovation policy out there to be flexible around it. But you're right, we've started seeing LVT in the guest rooms. It's still a little bit up for debate, like how long does LVT last without having to switch it out, the durability of that product. But if we can go to renovation cycles with it, then that's beneficial for us all.
Yeah, and also, putting a little bit more upfront in design, depending on market, can also help you get a little bit better ADR compared to your comp set. So it helps that way also. You can always talk to the brand and do a little bit more than prototype. So if the market is right, I think you should look into it.
So that is along the lines of one of the next questions I had in mind, which are ways to future-proof a hotel development. So you are minimizing the cost of renovations down the road. Are there any tips, suggestions that you have to kind of future-proof a hotel development?
I think it depends on the market. I'll give you a couple examples. So we operate in Florida, up and down southeast, and we do have some market where you can do wood construction. But even though the jurisdiction allows you to do wood, we are doing concrete. Couple reasons. Long term, it's beneficial. It holds the value of your asset better whenever you want to offload in future. And also with the insurance, premium the way it is, you get substantial benefit of having concrete versus wood building. We also see during hurricane, if there's a large group, they'll call and ask, hey, you have wood building or concrete building? So sometimes it's going to cost you a little bit, and you have to see the delta. What's the delta between wood construction versus concrete, and see if for that market it's going to work or not. But I think spending a little bit more upfront definitely helps, and this being one of the examples that putting some EVs. The city wants 4, put 6. IT infrastructure, put a little bit more. It all, because eventually it works out. You'll see in guest satisfaction.
I was just going to say that all those are guest satisfaction examples as well.
Yes, right? Guest satisfaction translate into better NOI, which translate into better value. It just helps, and also it also helps if you have the right product. Your team is more confident in selling your hotel. Your sales manager can be confident in selling your hotel. And it just works the whole cycle from operational cash flow to potentially selling it one day. The whole thing works better.
John, it looks like you're about to jump in there with something.
Yeah, I mean, what we see a lot of is putting some thought into things that a lot of the times owners and designers don't always get in the weeds on. Something as simple as how is your electrical fed on a floor, right? If it's on a stack, that room is way less flexible moving forward versus running horizontally, where you can maybe intercept and move some receptacles in the future. We've had projects where they've run additional conduit and back boxes and potentially even low voltage to a room for future technology. You were suggesting that. We've seen that. We've projects where they're going to do an Aruba system, things like that. But I think just thinking about the room from what that next remodel might look like, furniture layout, things like that. Like we talked about the vanities, not doing side fed, doing back fed. giving some flexibility to do furniture pieces versus built-ins wherever possible that have to be custom. Those would be the things I would say will help you in the long run.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. More loose FF&E versus built-ins, and also mix and match, so have some different finishes. You can have ceramic nightstand lamps versus wood nightstand lamps and a floor lamp, just so in the future you have more flexibility to just replace the nightstand lamp and not have to replace all the lighting.
So we are at 3:45. Before I ask for your parting thoughts, any last questions from the audience? Yes.
When it comes to FF&E, is it better to have the owner purchase it or the builder purchase it?
It would be the owner, so as Benjamin West is involved in the process, we would be acting as your fiduciary agent if you're the owner, and then any purchase order that we issue is acting on behalf of whatever the legal project entity is, so you have ownership of the goods outright. So it's the most transparent model.
And also you want to have the relationship with the vendor, so for ongoing stuff that you may need after you open, you need to have a relationship.
So I'm going to ask each of you if you could leave one piece of advice for any of the developers, investors, anybody else in the audience for building a successful project. Just what's your one quick piece of advice? Starting with you, Katie.
We did a retrospective recently for our first Hyatt Studios opening in Mobile with that team, and communication came up. It's a big talking point. But where I want to go with this is just really leaning into some of Hyatt's values and purpose of care. And something that I would just encourage everyone is to practice active listening. I think it goes a really long way to make sure that we're communicating and being thoughtful and being heard.
I would say if you want to be in hotel industry, if you want to build your hotel, make sure and you be true to yourself that you enjoy what you're doing and this is what you want. If you enjoy the challenges, there's always a way to deal with challenges. But if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying, everything will bother you. So if you're into it, give it your 100%. One step at a time. There's always solution. Don't worry about the multiple challenge. Just deal with one at a time, and it'll work itself out.
We're like a broken record up here. Start early, assemble the right team, and be decisive. So don't change your mind halfway through the project because you stayed at a different hotel and saw the next best thing. Keep the whole team on track.
Thank you for saying that. I hadn't thought of that. That is so true. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and I would say, I just echo it, like getting everybody involved early so that they can all work together as a team. You mentioned the comment on contingency. The more that, in a general contractor position or CMAR position, we are all on the same page. I don't want you to not have the right amount of contingency to make the project successful. Maybe if we're sitting there working as a team, I don't need as much contingency on my side, and so it's not contingency on top of contingency. Some projects need it, but sometimes that's what's going to kill a project. So the more that we're on the same page and working together and trusting each other, it's a perfect way to make a project succeed.
I don't have a question, but I have a suggestion. I don't mean to say it's advice. Do not ever build a wood structure without. Always build a concrete structure without, because the delta difference is not that much, and the reward is so.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you.
I second that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your attendance today, and thank you very much for the panel. Round of applause.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.